Ladies and gentlemen, viewers of all ages, a big welcome to all of you from the US, Qatar, and all around the world joining us today for our first Art of Athletics Festival. I am Cedric Craig, the Director of Communications at the Qatar America Institute for Culture, or QAIC, a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit organization that creates, curates, and executes programs and research focused on art and culture from Qatar, the US, and the larger Arab and Islamic worlds. Today, we are celebrating virtually with partners from the creative and athletic communities, both in the US and Qatar, and we hope that our partners, friends, and you, our viewers, will be able to join us for more Art of Athletics festivals in person in our new headquarters here in DuPont Circle very soon. As part of today's celebration, QAIC is also happy to announce the launch of the Arab Film House Program and Awards. And the Arab Film House Program and Awards is a joint initiative by QAIC and the Doha Film Institute, with this year's support from ConocoPhillips, and it's a program that aims to highlight the crucial role that cinema and film play in defining various cultures while serving as a bridge between them. Through the art of storytelling, films can convey and simplify complex social issues and cultural perspectives to diverse audiences across various evolving societies. To spotlight the value of this medium and reward those seeing to its development and excellence throughout the Arab world, QAIC and DFI partnered to offer 3 films by Arab American filmmakers the annual Arab Film House Award. The 2021 selections will be based on films that explore the theme of sport and society. Whether it's an experimental short film on your neighborhood's girls' soccer team during the pandemic or a documentary on your best friend reaching the summit of Kilimanjaro, this year's selection will feature stories of Arabic culture and people through the lens of sport and society. If you're interested to know more about this initiative, please stay tuned to our social channels and sign up on our website at www.qataramerica.org for updates and announcements on the selected films and upcoming initiatives. Now back to the Art of Athletics Festival. We have a very exciting program ahead of us today, starting with messages by the Doha Film Institute, ConocoPhillips, and American Scores, and ending with a chat between Dana Al-Fardan and the Washington Spirit team to explore and share how art and culture serve as sources for inspiration and empowerment, both on and off the field. So now to start today's event, we would like to share remarks from some of our partners who made this possible, starting with J. Todd Krieger of ConocoPhillips, Fatma Hassan Al-Ramehi of the Doha Film Institute, and Bethany Henderson of America Scores. Again, thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the festival's program.
Thank you to the Qatar America Institute for Culture for your organizing this event. Qatar and the United States share a storied relationship defined by a strong economic partnership and flourishing ties in the arts and sciences. We at ConocoPhillips are proud to call both of these countries our homes. As Qatar is our home in the Middle East, we hold a great appreciation for the Qatari way of life, taking every opportunity to immerse ourselves in its rich customs and traditions. I have spent the last 5 years working in this culturally diverse country, cultivating ties with the local community and joining them in joyous celebrations of their heritage. We are also a proudly American company. We represent our own culture with honor, and we do our own part to facilitate a stimulating exchange between both of our peoples. On behalf of ConocoPhillips, we are excited to participate in the Qatar USA Year of Culture 2021, connecting our 2 nations through sport, film, philanthropy, and more. The year ahead promises to solidify our country's cultural bonds, giving us all plenty of opportunities to learn from one another. Today's Art of Athletics Festival captures just one aspect of this year-long cultural exchange. The medium of film transcends borders, documenting people's experiences and giving voice to their imagination or struggles in equal measure. Through them, we gain glimpses into the cultures from which these filmmakers hail. I must also take the time to recognize the spirited Qatari voices who proudly represent their country to the world. Dana Al-Fardan's work as a composer, songwriter, and symphonic artist encapsulates her people's culture and history. Once again, we thank the Qatar America Institute for Culture for hosting this initiative. We also thank the Doha Film Institute for lending their expertise and passion for film to these activities. Enjoy the festival, and thank you.
Good evening. For those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Fatma Hassan Al-Rumehi, CEO of the Doha Film Institute. And I have the pleasure of being a part of today's exciting launch of the Arab Film House. At the heart of our work at the Institute is culture, community, and education. So it brings us great pleasure to collaborate with Qatar America's Institute's Arab Film House, an initiative that aims to highlight the crucial role that cinema and film play in defining cultures while serving as a bridge between them. We're also very proud to be announcing the launch of the Arab Film Awards to honor Arab talent, present our stories, and strengthen our voice on the world stage. Arab Film House Awards will serve as an important platform for the exchange of diverse cultural perspectives and provide us with an opportunity to connect with global communities and promote underrepresented voices. The partnership also kicks off our planned activities this year to reinforce the deep cultural relationships between our nations with year-long celebration of Qatar America Year of Culture, a Qatar Museum initiative, developed to deepen and understanding between nations through mutual exchanges of arts, culture, heritage, and sports. Promoting deeper cultural understanding and appreciation, our cultural partnerships with Qatar America Institute will include a carefully curated selection of films that will screen at the Arab Film House, in addition to special programs developed to showcase voices and stories that are a testament to Qatar's vibrant growing film industry and talent from the wider Arab region. Today's launch also coincides with Qatar National Sports Day, as we celebrate the intersections of sport and film and the immense benefits that both bring to the physical and emotional well-being of our societies. Just as film, sports emulate the triumph of human spirit that transcends borders and cultures. And by bringing stories of athletic inspiration to the screen, we're reminded that whether your dream is to play in one of the world's largest sports extravaganzas, next year's FIFA World Cup series that will be hosted here in Qatar, or to achieve success at one of the world's leading film events, the Oscars, the important thing is to dream without borders, without limitations. Using the medium of film to explore life and culture in the context of sports and its relevance to our societies, the theme for this year's inaugural awards, the Doha Film Institute ongoing support of creative expressions of sports in films includes acclaimed titles such as Speed Sisters, 81, Freedom Fields, We Could Be Heroes, Amal, among others. All these films explore humanity against the backdrop of sports, uniting our cultures and allow us to celebrate and explore common values and discover new stories and talent. Film is one of the most powerful mediums for storytelling, and it inspires and expands our understanding of the world and enriches our lives in immeasurable ways. In my time so far with the Doha Film Institute, I have been fortunate to witness the incredible transformative power that cinema can have on people of all ages and backgrounds. Film enables people of all generations to discover our country's rich history, contemplate our passion for life today, and be inspired by the limitless potential of our societies for the future through cinematic language. Although on the surface, Qatar and America may be vastly different, we share common values of respect for culture, and the Arab Film House will be an exciting destination of cultural learning where people from around the world will be enriched through the universal language of film. At DFI, we believe in the power of film to bring about change and are committed to ensuring that great stories continue to be told. Bringing our stories to life pays tribute to our unique identity in the global landscape and will enhance the artistic and economic vibrancy of our country while honoring the rich complexity of our roots. We're extremely grateful for our country's leadership in this unfailing support for our creative communities, and to Sheikh Al-Mayasa for her continued generous contribution to establishing Qatar as a leading global cultural destination, and for elevating the impact of arts and culture in our national development. I hope you all share our excitement for the upcoming Arab Film House Awards and the important opportunity that it provides for audiences to gain a deeper understanding of who we are. I look forward to hearing all the inspiration that the films being awarded today will spark in its viewers. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Hello, everyone. Bethany Henderson here with America Scores. Very glad to be here with all of you today. I'm going to share a little bit about America Scores. I'm going to share my screen so you can see some of the images from our programming. So let's start with that. Make sure that is now working. So America Scores, you can see our mission up on the page. What we do is we work with specific groups of kids and we provide specific programming, which I'm going to talk to you about today and talk about how it intersects art and athletics and brings the two together. But let me back up and start with our origin story. So America Scores was founded over 25 years ago by a school teacher in Washington, D.C. Now, she noticed that a group of her students, 10-year-old girls, were hanging around the street corners after school with nothing to do. And this was a very difficult neighborhood at the time, a neighborhood with a lot of crime, a neighborhood with a lot of violence. It was not a safe place for kids to be hanging around the streets. And she said she was a soccer player and she'd been a soccer player in college. And she said to them, well, if you'd like to learn how to play soccer, football, as many of you call it, why don't you come hang out with me after school? So the kids showed up after school in her classroom and she took them out to the field and taught them how to play soccer. And they kept coming day after day, week after week. So she got some of her friends who were teaching at other area schools in DC to do the same thing. And pretty quickly they had a nice little soccer thing going. But then, as happens in DC in the winter, the weather got bad, didn't really want to be outside playing sports or doing anything, but the kids kept coming. And she realized that they really needed that environment, that community with her, with each other, that they had experienced on that soccer field. And she thought to herself, well, they liked one thing I like, soccer, maybe they'll like something else. Now, our founder, Julie Kennedy, was a poet. That was her art form of choice. And so she started teaching the same group of girls, this team of soccer players, how to write poetry. And very quickly, she discovered that the bonds of trust that the girls built with each other and her on the soccer field translated into them being very vulnerable in the art of poetry, in their writing. And very quickly, that's where Scores was born. And to this day, soccer and poetry form two of the core elements of our free after-school programs that we run for now thousands and thousands of kids across North America every year. We've also added, we actually added in the second or third year service learning so that the kids could take the issues they were writing about in their poetry and do something about them. So they could feel that sense of agency and empowerment, amplifying their voice and acting in their community. Now, adults often ask me, soccer, poetry together, really, what? But there's a beauty, the art of athletics, the athleticism of this particular art form. And if you've heard spoken word, you know what I'm talking about. There's a beauty that shines through both of these mediums. Rather than hear me talk about it, I'm actually going to let the experts speak. So what I'm going to do now is share a couple of clips from our upcoming film that's being released. I'll talk a little bit more about the film called Our Words, Our Cities that features our soccer players, our poet athletes, as we call them, performing their poetry. But first up, I'm going to show a clip of youth development expert Amy Mummery, who now heads America Scores Chicago, talking about why soccer and poetry really do fit together so well.
It's all about celebrating the power of poetry, and particularly in scores, for our young people, giving them the space to be heard and also for their voice to be amplified is a critical part of the work that we do. It particularly when it makes the audience uncomfortable. So often our young people in communities that are under-resourced and underrepresented in spaces, their voices aren't amplified or they're told to dampen their voices, and that's not what we're about. I would say that the power of poetry is real, and we create a space at America Scores that's very unique for our young people to experience that and to be expressive.
So now that Amy has shared the theory of poetry, I want to actually show you a clip of one of our coaches who actually started as a soccer coach, became a poetry coach, Coach Manny from Bay Area, talking about how he fuses the art of poetry and the sport of soccer or football together on the field for his poet athletes.
Field onto the stage.
My name is Coach Manny. I am the soccer and poetry coach at E.R. Taylor Elementary for Bay Area Scores. My relationship to poetry actually started when I was very young. When I was about 8, 9 years old, I used to recite poetry for my school. And I used to enter, our own version of slams. And, I've got stuck, liking it. Plus, one of my aunties, she used to write a lot and used to make me read poetry along with her, so I got interested in it. Poetry brings a big group of kids together, or not just kids, but individuals, everybody. I have Jose, April, and Bella. They're gonna be competing, and against each other actually, and I'm hoping that they don't freeze up. We've been rehearsing for the past 2 weeks nonstop. It's crazy. And I'm hoping that they are able to let themselves go. Don't think about a competition. Don't think about anything. Push yourself to express what you want to say. Push yourself to let the judges and the whole crowd, everybody that's going to be present, let them see what you're talking about. Let them feel your poetry. That's what I'm hoping for.
Let themselves go. Don't think about the competition. Push yourself to express yourself. It's what we tell our poet athletes on the field, and it's what we tell our poet athletes in the art form as well. So let me share a little bit more about how America Scores does that. Our reach, as I said, is North America. We currently work with over 13,000 children a year through free after-school programs and summer camps across the US and Canada. We've heard over 130,000 kids have been poet athletes over the course of our 25 plus years of existence. And who we serve is very important as well to understand, because at America Scores, we focus specifically on children growing up in neighborhoods characterized by entrenched poverty. This means, in United States terms, kids who attend under-resourced schools, kids whose families don't have enough money to put food on the table consistently, kids who are housing insecure. And these are primarily, as you can see, children of color, Black children, Hispanic, Latino children, in some of our communities, Middle Eastern children, Asian children. And most of these kids are also way behind in school when they join our program. Now, what makes our program unique is that for many kids, sports are nice. They're a nice thing to do. Soccer in America is not universally accessible without Scores. For our kids, their Scores team is their lifeline. Because as you heard Coach Manny share, as you heard me say earlier, we really build it around our teams, around our coaches who are the core of our teams, who come from our poet athletes communities, who know what their lives are like and work with them day in and day out on both their soccer skills and on poetry. Here in this country and in Canada, there are a lot of barriers to playing sports and engaging in arts enrichment. And this is where America Scores comes in. We break down those barriers. Barriers in our countries are pay to play. It's all fee-based access. Kids don't play soccer in the neighborhoods like they do around much of the world. It is not the neighborhood sport here. Physical and accessibility. Soccer fields are often hard to get to. In the communities we work in, there's a lack of transportation, or the parents are working multiple jobs and can't get their kids to the soccer games. Immediate family needs. A lot of our communities, our kids are caring for younger siblings or working to contribute to the family financially. And then also cultural norms in many of the communities we work in, particularly around girls playing soccer. And so we remove all of these barriers to access through our proven strategies. Our programming is 100% free. All America's programming is America Scores programming is 100% free. It's in kids' neighborhoods, at their schools, at their community centers. We go to where kids already are. We structure our program to account for their reality as well, so that every child can play soccer no matter their socioeconomic circumstance, their gender, their physical build. Every child can write poetry no matter what language they speak at home. These are all elements of our programming that are built in. We partner with schools, with principals and teachers, and help them understand and have resources to communicate with their communities about the connections between sports, arts, and academics, between sports, arts, and behavior. And we're working in the communities as they exist, not asking kids to meet us in a different way. And then we hire, train, and pay community-based coaches, as I said, coaches like Coach Manny, who work in the community, who work in the schools, who are part of the fabric of their community, help the kids really understand the intersection between soccer and poetry, build those connections on their teams, and develop those relationships. And we train all of our coaches, not just in soccer, not just in poetry writing and performance, not just in spoken word or how to deliver a service learning curriculum. All of our programming is actually child-directed, adult facilitated, but also in concepts like trauma-informed and healing-centered coaching, how to develop kids' social emotional skills. And then last but certainly not least, we create immediate tangible benefits for kids. Kids get to be celebrated on the field at games and tournaments. We run full leagues so that kids have that experience of a full league. We kit out every kid shoulder to shins. They all go home with jerseys. They go home with soccer balls that are branded America Scores. We have poetry slams where kids get to perform. They get to get on stage and be celebrated by their community, have their voices heard. And what does this do? Well, you can see some of the results on the screen. We provide millions of hours, millions of child hours of programming every year, even during the pandemic where we had to flip all of our programming to virtual. We have continued providing spaces for kids to stay safe, supported, connected, and hopeful, which is really crucial for the kids that we work in who are often disenfranchised and disconnected from the broader communities and from their schools. And it has physical, academic, and mental results, right? So you've got tangible benefits on kids' schooling, you've got tangible benefits on their health, and you've got tangible benefits on their life outcomes by fusing soccer and poetry, these two beautiful art forms in their own rights. So all of this took us to the idea that we wanted to make a movie about some of the work that we do and particularly elevate the power of poetry and the power of spoken word. And so last year, we developed a full national competitive spoken word slam experience to give our poet athletes the same opportunities that professional spoken word artists have, to get them to really envision themselves in those shoes and in those experiences, to elevate kids' voices and words to a broader audience. And the importance of listening to these young voices has only been amplified by the events of 2020, although we began this project well before. And we held 3 regional poetry slams. So every city in America Scores held a citywide poetry slam. Nearly 14,000 kids participated in those. We narrowed it down to regional poetry slams where we had about 45, 50 kids compete in those regional slams. We had those regional slams live in Chicago, San Francisco, and New York in January and February of 2020. And you can see some of the photos of those here. And then we were gonna have a national slam in Washington, DC. And of course, COVID shut the world down. And so we had to take the whole thing online and virtual. In a little while, you're gonna get to meet and hear from the director and producer of the film, as well as one of the coaches, spoken word coaches who appears in the film. But I want to show you one more clip. The film itself is going to come out on Amazon later this month. So you'll be able to watch the whole thing and see more of Amy and Coach Manny and more of the coach and poet athlete I'm about to show you now. But I wanted to close with one of my favorite clips from the film. And that is of Coach Chanel, who you'll get to meet in a moment, and Ahmed from America Scores New York, talking about the experience of being part of a film, part of a spoken word competition. And you'll get to close with Ahmed's original amazing poem about his experiences as a 10-year-old.
My name is Chanel Sharp. I am the writing coordinator with America Scores New York. I met through my company that I work with, America Scores New York. We had a jamboree. Part of that was poetry. Part of the event was poetry, and I ran the poetry part of the event. And he came up. I just was like, anyone wants to share their poems that they wrote? I was like, it was so many kids. So I didn't see him at first. And I was just teaching all of them at once. And I was like, all right, would anyone like to share what they wrote with the help of their coaches as well at their schools? And he came up. He was one of the first people to raise his hand. And I was like, you want to go? He was like, yeah. I was like, all right, come up. And he came up. He said his poem. I was like, this kid has something special. His poem was fully in Arabic at first, so I couldn't understand what he was saying, but just his presence and his vibe, I was like, this kid has something special.
I remember the first time it happened. Planes flying by, dropping down nukes, we were trapped in. I looked for my family, they were absent. I felt scared being separated from my mother. My Yemenis are turning to enemies instead of turning to each other. My uncles were killed. My mom could never say I love you to her brothers. I remember when me and my uncle would play soccer, and now I got to deal with the fact that I won't get those moments back. Every day when I go to sleep, I wonder if it will ever stop. I wish I could turn back the hands on the clock. I wish I could depend on all my leaders in Yemen, but some of them are falling to sleep while people are walking around with weapons. I'm going to pray. I'm going to get my word out to the world. Stop this fight that we never asked for. Stop this hunger that we never asked for. Stop this killing that we never asked for. Stop this injustice that we never asked for. Stop this war that me and you never asked for.
Ahmed is one of about 45 young voices you'll get to hear and meet when you watch our whole film, which we hope that you will do. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. If you want to learn more about America Scores or how to get involved, our website is www.americascores.org. We're a small, actually grassroots run organization, although we have a wide reach, very locally run, and particularly if you happen to live in or be connected to one of the cities that we work in, we'd love to get you involved and get you out to see our programming or see it virtually. There are thousands more young children that we would like to serve that are on the wait list for our programming. And to do that, we need your help. But thank you for letting me be here today to talk about the power of poetry, the power of soccer, and fusing them together in the art of athletics.
Thank you, Bethany. And thank you, American Scores, for sharing your inspiring work with us and giving our audiences a special glimpse into the Our Words, Our City documentary, which, as you mentioned, Bethany, will be available to watch on Amazon Prime later this month. So if any of our viewers are interested, you'll be able to see that then. Moving on to the next portion of our program, allow me to welcome Qatari contemporary composer, singer-songwriter, and symphonic artist, Dana Al-Fardan, who will be moderating today's Art Athletics panel. So for those who are unfamiliar, Dana is the brand ambassador of the internationally renowned Qatar Philharmonic Orchestra and has played alongside the London Metropolitan Orchestra at the iconic Theatre Royal Haymarket in London. She has multiple albums and musicals that were performed internationally. Dana has also recently recorded Rising, which we will show to you now. This song was inspired by the Washington Spirit team and is in a collaboration between Dana and the US Air Force Band based in Doha. And the song is to promote inclusion and connectivity. So we'll share that for you right now.
The night grows silent as the sun meets the sky. Your voice is rising when there's no place to hide. Deep inside, there's a home that we share within the light of a world built together where we fly. Say the words and I will stay to live forever, bounded by the light of day. They'll never sever all our ties.
To discuss the power of art and sports and to surpass language barriers and develop deeper connections, Donna will be joined on the panel today by America's Scores coach, Chanel Sharp, Our Words, Our Cities director, Michael Holstein, and members of the Washington Spirit, Aubrey Bledsoe, Dorian Bailey, Paige Nielsen, Samantha Staub, and Tori Huster. And with that, I'll allow you to take it from here, Donna.
It's a pleasure to meet you guys, and some of you have already seen before. It's great to be here. Hello, ladies. I'm not hearing many of you, actually. You might be muted. Can you guys unmute yourself, Washington Spirit? Okay, Chanel?
Hi.
Hey, hello, there you are. Chanel?
Yes.
You wanna take this on? Okay, wonderful. Michael?
Yes, hi.
Here you are, wonderful. So we all have spoken to death about the shifts and turns and all the different, configurations that we've had to now accommodate because of COVID and how that has turned our lives upside down. But I think what this panel demonstrates and why we're here today is not to talk about the downfalls, but actually talk about the opportunities that have been created. And of course, right now, we're all sitting in front of each other, speaking to each other all around the world in a manner that we wouldn't have before and connecting in a manner that we wouldn't have before. And so I want to start by just talking about how and understanding how we've understood and we've really solidified the power of the creative world as well as sports in bringing people together and really transcending the barriers that this pandemic has created. So starting with you, Chanel, America's Scores. I mean, this is an incredible organization. For you, what is it that made you decide that poetry and sports are aligned?
I think for me, honestly, it's not like I went into this looking for it. I saw Scores and I saw what they stood for. I'm not really a big sports person, but when I came to Scores, I saw the importance of teamwork, community. I saw how a lot of our kids, they didn't really have anything to do after school. So our program was something that they looked forward to. They built friendships that they never would have made. They understood the meaning of teamwork, and that's on the field and in the classroom. So yeah, I think just combining the writing aspect as well as the soccer aspect, they were active physically, and then in school, their minds are active and they're learning how to express themselves. And then the fact that they were on an actual soccer team, now they feel more comfortable with one another. They trust one another. So they're getting more open about things they're going through or things that they like, things they enjoy, what their favorite foods are, what they want to do, what games they like to play, stuff like that. And it's really just building a family. We're family. So I think, that's why I decided to join and stay.
And did you feel like there was a barrier to entry in terms of expression, in terms of how people presented themselves, in terms of how people can connect? So did you feel like incorporating a creative aspect to the curriculum was something that actually pushed the sports aspect of it?
Necessary.
Where a lot of people must have felt, I want to compete, I want to do this, but I don't know how to connect. I don't know how to, how to engage. I don't even know what to do to get on the field. I don't know so for you, did you feel, or did you experience this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And I think it was necessary for that to happen because, let's say someone's strong suit is not soccer. Now they have poetry and writing to fall back on. Let's say someone's strong suit is not writing. Now they have the soccer to, really, show out on the field. And, either way, like their game days are a big day. Their open mics are big days. Like they have something that, makes them feel special as they are, but without it, it's kind of, sometimes maybe it's hard for them to see that. So, we really put the focus on them and make sure they know how important they are, how special they are, their voice matters, and what they do on a day-to-day, whether it's a soccer game or anything, matters. And then you connect it to the community. The whole community comes out, well, it's a little bit difficult now because we're virtual, but when we did have our game days, the whole community came out. And even during the virtual, when we have our open mics, we have people joining from America Scores Canada, America Score Qatar America. You know what I mean? Like they love this. They love this stuff, and it's needed. It's needed.
So America Scores works with a large cohort of students in urban communities throughout the US and Canada. And of course, your goal is to inspire and empower urban youth using football, writing, creative expression, and service learning. So how has this program impacted the lives of immigrants and kids that are trying to incorporate themselves and assimilate?
Man, I wish I had them here to speak themselves, but I think of two people. When you ask me that question, I think of two of our kids. One, her name is Carla. She wrote an amazing poem and actually got all the way to the national poetry slam with this poem. But she talked about how, she was being called an immigrant and an alien in her poem. And this is, she's not, 10, 11 years old. And she's like, I'm no immigrant, I'm no alien, I'm my mother's daughter, and that's to quote Carla. And I didn't help her write that, she wrote that. But this is, these are the things that our kids want to say and don't really know how to say, and we facilitate and we give them a safe platform to share that. They have a safe space to go ahead and share that. The second student I think about is Ahmed, another poet athlete at America Scores. He's from Yemen. He literally fled a war and came here with his dad to America. And he talks about that in his poem. And he was another poet athlete that also made it to the National Poetry Slam with that piece. So I think what we do is provide that safe space. We provide that platform for them to be able to express and talk and get out. They're at a point right now, they're developing their voice, they're finding themselves, they're creating themselves, you know what I mean? So, and they're our future, so we pour into them and they make the world a better place. So I always tell my kids all the time, I'm like, listen, you guys are going to change the world, and I mean it.
100%. So you've understood that a lot of the barriers were there because, especially a lot of barriers towards engaging in team related activities, particularly sports, because people did not have the capacity to express themselves. And I don't mean the capacity in terms of their talent, but the space and the platform to express themselves. And so there was always this sense of isolation, and specifically with immigrant communities, understanding your identity, being able to express that, being able to assimilate while maintaining your individuality and all of the components that makes you who you are. And so it's beautiful that you were saying that I'm not an alien, I'm my mother's daughter. I mean, this 10-year-old to understand that there is a perspective that she's having to constantly fight against in order for her to get closer to other people. And so that probably would have prevented her from even thinking about entering a team, right?
Right, exactly. Like our kids are coming from, we call it underrepresented communities, but just to be transparent, they're in the hood. So our kids are, what they see around them every day is not always positive. Like they're exposed to a lot that the majority of kids don't really have to deal with. Not all of our kids are in two-parent households. Not all of our kids have seen healthy relationships. They don't, it's different. Their mindset is not always like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have a great day and be great. You know what I mean? Sometimes this is their outlet where they can come and actually feel like, all right, this is safe for me, this is healthy for me, I'm having fun. And again, I said not all. I'm not saying all of our kids are, just exposed to violence 24/7, but I'm just saying like our communities are underrepresented communities where, we're not in the suburbs. Like, so for them, it means everything for them to be able to come to a place where I feel safe. I feel like this is good to me. I feel this is special. I'm somebody, and which they are. They're more than somebody. So yeah, it's just up to us to, I look at it as like my duty. I see it as my duty. I don't even have a choice in the matter. You know, I look at it like this is what I need to do and what I'm going to do.
I mean, this is really the core of the human experience right here. We all have our goals and our objectives. And we spend our entire lives trying to understand first how to transcend all of the barriers to entry. B, how do we connect with other people in order to communicate this? So what you're doing right now is you're giving them a channel to communicate this. While sports is a channel and an outlet to engage in a healthier expression of, you know, their frustration, and through sports being able to achieve this high level of you know, a performance of excellence. Just combining the two is genius. And I want to take this to the girls at Washington Spirits. We met in Doha a few months ago. My God, it feels like a century ago already, but you know, time passes very quickly. And what was so interesting is when we met the girls, I mean, what did you know? I want to start by asking you, how much did you know about Qatari culture when you arrived, and how much of the myths that are generally, you know, circulating around the media of what the Arab world means and what that represents, how much of that was debunked, and how much did you feel like you connected on a deeper level when you guys arrived?
Yeah, I'll speak for the group. None of us had been to the Middle East before, and until Qatar. Oh, I'm sorry, Paige has been to Jordan. Yeah, Jordan. Until Qatar got the 2023 Men's World Cup bid, I would say most of us probably hadn't even heard of Qatar as a country. So it was just a really unique experience to kind of go in with a bit of a blank slate and see for ourselves, because of course the media kind of presents the Arab world as just a big desert. And you think of oil fields, but at least for me, I couldn't distinguish the differences in cultures and countries. So it was just a great opportunity to see for ourselves and to be shown by Qataris just how proud they are of their country. We got to tour some of the World Cup stadiums that were being built. We went to the Qatar Museum and had a fantastic tour guide who walked us through the entire history of Qatar, which was really interesting. And we just got a great sense of national pride and kind of a window into the Arab world. And yeah, it was a fantastic experience.
So share with us, what was it like working with the youth in Doha?
At the start, working with the youth in Doha, a lot of the kids were super shy. They didn't really know how to interact with us, and we also really didn't know how to interact. We knew that we were there for a purpose, and so when we got our cleats on and when we started playing soccer with these girls, that's when you kind of saw these kids start to express themselves. And like poetry, like art, everyone needs a path and an avenue to express themselves, and soccer actually does that too. I think poetry, I think art, I think any kind of sport makes a person vulnerable, and that's when you start to connect. So after the first couple of days with these kids, and when they found out who we were and why we were there, people started coming up to us, smiling a lot more, showing us who they were and their potential. And it was a really incredible experience. I think every kid, every child wants someone to believe in them. And I think that's the most important, to connect with others and grow as a whole community.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, soccer is a universal sport. And it's the most popular sport in the world. And you said it perfectly. Once you've got your cleats on, after that, all the lines are blurred. Everyone is only, everyone naturally comes together on the shared understanding of the construction of the sport and how to engage in order to, move forward. So What was it like, or understanding that, again, you guys and your involvement in Qatar at this point to receive the World Cup? How did you have any memorable experiences, understanding that you are part of a legacy right now, where the question of women's empowerment is front row and center?
Sorry, Donna, you broke up a little bit there. I think what you asked is, yeah, if you could just repeat it, sorry.
No, but I was just saying, you're absolutely right. It's a universal language. Sport's a universal language, and it's the most popular sport in the world. And in the build-up towards Qatar receiving the World Cup, the first Middle Eastern country to receive the most important sporting event, on the planet, did you have a sense of the legacy that you guys were creating and contributing to in terms of being a female soccer team, engaging with the youth and engaging with the local population at a period of time when women's empowerment and the notions and the questions of women surrounding women's empowerment is front row and center? And we're now going to be presenting all of these values that, again, sports is a huge platform to present in front of the world.
Definitely. I think for as long as I can remember, women's soccer has been very empowered in our country. We've been good for a very long time. And I think our league and having the opportunity to go over there and showcase how developed we are, showcase that to maybe a culture that is on the up and up as far as women's sports and empowering women is going. I think when we're there, I don't know if we sat and thought about the legacy that we're having, because we're so into it, especially when the girls were playing the Qatar women's national team. They're super into it because they're just playing and they're having fun. But I think the joy that we have when we're playing, as that's being expressed when we are, I think that's showing other women that are potentially having the same interests that it's possible, that having those role models, having girls that have been playing since we've been 4 years old, I think that is super important, and it can really create a lasting impact, which is what you're talking about with legacy. I think we don't really realize that until we're back and we can kind of process what a trip like that really means and the value of something like that. But for sure, I think all of us sitting here today could say that legacy is super important, especially for a country that's going to host a World Cup, to get women there really excited about a football tournament as big as that coming to their own country.
So drawing on what you were saying right now, Tori, did you see a difference in the impact of sports during your exchange trip? The impact of sports in Qatar versus the impact of sports in the US? Perhaps the youth programming for girls or support for the women's national football team?
I think one of the biggest things that changed the landscape of women's sports was Title IX here. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but it's basically to help equalize funding for women and men in sports, or in education programs, which athletics falls into that. That was, I think, in the 80s, I believe. So we, I think, have seen that funding really help female athletes. And the level of interest has only grown because of that. I don't know about Qatar and how that funding is happening. It seems like it is trending in the right direction for sure. I think that because we have played for so long and really developed at the youth level, we are ahead in some aspects. But I think that having trips like this, that's precisely what it's for. It's to have that exchange and that exchange of ideas, to only further help progression, especially when it comes to females for us.
Great point. That's actually a great point. Funding and education, I think, plays a primary role in cultivating a sustainable foundations for the arts and sports as well. So going back to first to honor the legacy of the Qatar US Year of Culture and you know everything that has been established on the back of that. How do you see sports functioning to promote cultural understanding between different cultures of people? Of course, you've touched on that. We've spoken about how this is a universal language, and the second you guys are on the field, everything is. And how can you leverage that and expand that and promote that further? I.e. programs, exchange programs, offering scholarships. How do you think, in terms of what you were saying earlier, there's a lack of funding, there's probably a lack of support. And on the back of this understanding that this is a universal language and this is something that brings everybody together and there is no barriers when it comes to engaging in this, you know, hugely popular sport. How can this really be a tool to promote that further? This understanding be a tool to promote it further?
Yeah, it's everything you just said, exchange programs, just huge events, trying to connect people all across the world. Steve, our owner, was mentioning a tournament with 4 international women's soccer teams. So you have the World Cup in Qatar, right? And it's all men's soccer players. Like, if we want to grow the game of women's soccer and give more opportunities to women in sports, then we should host a female tournament in Qatar as well. It's doing things like that all over the world. And I think this is just a start for us going over there and connecting with kids. And yeah, I guess that's. But like Tori said, if we can have more access to educational programs and universities and funding for programs like this, I think that is very important for the future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paige. That's a great point in terms of actually creating a tournament, probably in the months before the World Cup, right? In order to engage the general population, get that message across, get women involved, and actually have a world stage in order to showcase the support for empowering women in sports. That's a great point. Now, talking about community and engaging in this sort of community experience, Michael Holstein. The documentary Our World, Our Cities premiered January 2021, and it follows the nationwide youth poetry slam series run by America Scores. The documentary is a dive into the evolution of poetry told through the voices of the amazing poet athletes and provides insight into the struggles faced by children brought on by elevating racial injustice and violence in America during a global pandemic. So, Michael, how long has the idea for this documentary film been in the works, and how did this come to life?
So about 2 years ago, we started making a movie about what America Scores does in the soccer community. It really is, in broader strokes, it was about the role of soccer in American culture and society. So soccer's the most popular sport in the world, and we're a nation of immigrants, and you would think that there'd be some kind of correlation there, and that you know, the influx of immigrants to America who grew up playing soccer and with it ingrained in their culture would have a lasting impact on the success that our men's national team had. And our women have obviously always been great, and we're the best in the world. The men have always struggled on the international stage. So the movie started with sort of a look at, you know, why can't our men's team kind of make the leap? And why isn't, you know, as a correlation to that, why isn't soccer more popular in cities? You know, kids in most American cities, you can find a basketball court everywhere. Every kid loves football, but soccer is so easy, especially now with mini pitches and just ability to drop it into cities, that it should be more prevalent. So in making that movie, which was called Soccer in the City, and came out about, lost track of time, about 1.5 years ago. It feels like 20 years ago. But in doing that, we spent a lot of time with America Scores, in particular DC Scores, and I learned more about the poetry side of the program. And when I first discovered it, like we showed in the clips of the movie, and like Chanel alluded to, like the mix of soccer and poetry and service learning didn't make sense to me. As an organization that provides these three things that seem so disparate, but when you spend time learning about the organization, you see how it all meshes together and makes sense. So it's mind, body, and soul and spirit. And they all have sort of a knock-on effect with each other. So Coach Manny, you know, who we saw in the clip, coaches in San Francisco, you know, you see this guy and he kind of looks like a tough guy who'd be soccer coach and that's it. But really his primary love is of the poetry side of things. So in making Soccer in the City and some other video work for DC Scores, I really became interested in the poetry side of the program, and watching kids who may have joined the organization because they wanted to play soccer be sort of pushed out of their comfort zone and made to not just write but perform original poetry on stage. And that sort of vulnerability was really impressive to see in young people, and to see an organization that facilitated that. And the poems from these kids, I mean, some of them are funny, some of them are interesting, some are just devastating too. I mean, the way they open up, one young woman in the movie from San Francisco wrote a poem about her sister, her baby sister, who died, you know, at 2 or 3 years old. And, you know, people in the audience are crying. It's just really emotional and evocative. And then that, you know, as we're making the movie, we started production about this time last year, bad timing. So not only did we run into the problems posed by the pandemic, but also this was sort of the summer of, you know, racial reckoning and uprising. So when we'd go back and interview the kids who were in the movie, we did it via Zoom, obviously, because we couldn't be in person anymore. You know, the kids who are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old just had such incredibly powerful words about what they saw, you know, on the streets of their cities with protests and with, you know, the murder of George Floyd. And it just all was deeply emotional and impressive and inspiring. So when we had the opportunity, you know, through America Scores, we raised some money. We got a grant from Gannett from USA Today and another one from the District of Columbia, the DC Film Office. And it was enough money that if we sort of bootstrapped it, we could cobble together this national poetry slam series and make a movie about it. It's just an amazing opportunity to tell a story, to showcase these kids, to showcase people like Chanel who give so much of their own time to train and mentor and be such an integral part of the kids' lives. We did an event earlier in the early stages of the pandemic as a fundraiser for Scores, and Spirit players participated. And I think Paige did a poem, which was amazing. We put her on the spot and she did it off the cuff. So I'm not saying we should do that now, but we should do that now. So it was just, you know, really a great showcase amazing kids, amazing adults who facilitate these opportunities for kids, and leaders and role models in the community like the Spirit players who, you know, who kind of can help with that. So you take, for example, like, you know, Paige, whoever kids may see her on the soccer field and look up to her that way, but to see another part of her is great.
Those are the things that I think, and you're absolutely right in saying that that's what needs to be highlighted, because that's what makes it look and feel accessible. You know, once you remove all of the barriers between the kids and people striving to do something and the people that are actually doing it, and you have this level of engagement, I mean, that's like, that brings a level of productivity and output that wouldn't otherwise be there. So that's very interesting. And actually, building on what you have said earlier, you've already mentioned a very impactful experience that you had. I'd like you to elaborate on that a little bit more. What are some of the stories, characters, and transformations that you witnessed in making this documentary, and how has that left a significant impact on you? You've touched on that. I mean, you've already given the example of the girl with her sister who passed away, and she was actually expressing that. How has that left an impact on you and changed your direction potentially? I mean, we were always left changed, right? There's no experience that we have that leaves us the same way as when we entered it. So how has that sort of shifted your path? And what are the characters and the stories that have left this lasting impact on you?
That's a good question. Yeah, so for me, I mean, I think when I first started working with scores, I grew up playing soccer. I'm a big fan, and the poetry was an afterthought. And very quickly it became, I realized that it's just as important, it's just as interesting, it's just as competitive in some ways, with these poetry slams, and the kids practice just as hard. So I think for me that there was some enlightenment just in, not competitions, not just confined to athletics, but in terms of lasting impact from the movie and from the journey and the stories, I think there were two things. First was the resilience of the kids. I mean, this was the hardest year ever for all of us, right? But imagine that you're a kid, and as Bethany talked about, most of the kids in scores come from disadvantaged backgrounds. So while it's easier for kids from middle class or upper middle class homes to shift to this virtual learning space, they all have computers and high-speed internet and whatever. So a lot of the kids at Score Service don't, but they were still so resilient in working with their coaches and their teams and their schoolwork. But for, I think, a character or a person who sticks with me the most from making the movie, who we saw in the clip and who Chanel mentioned, was Ahmed, he's just the coolest kid. And came to America at, I think, about 4 or 5 years old, didn't speak a word of English. His father, he lived in Yemen with his father, mother, and I think 2 siblings at the time. And his father was able to get a visa that included him and 1 child. So he came over with Ahmed with the plan that soon after he'd bring over his wife and their other children. Well, right after they got to the United States coincided with the beginning of the Trump administration and the Muslim ban, the travel ban. And suddenly the rest of Ahmed's family couldn't get here. So it was just Ahmed and his father in the US. Kid didn't speak any English. His father opened a bodega. Ahmed somehow got linked up with America Scores, and maybe Chanel can speak to that. And he went from not speaking a word of English to writing, performing, and winning poetry slams with English language poems. And he was so confident and powerful in his words. And just a cool kid, a nice kid, a lovely family. We did an interview with him, and then we're also able to speak with him via Zoom, kind of mid-pandemic, July, August, something like that. And it was Ahmed and his father in the bodega. We did an interview for the movie, just to kind of, check in and see what he's been doing. And he talked about how he's still writing, and how writing, when he couldn't go out and play soccer with his friends anymore, his playgrounds are closed, we're not to be around other people, writing was what sort of saved him. And things like that, it's so powerful. And I hope it comes across in the movie. It certainly does when you get to meet the kids, or if you go to one of the live poetry slams and experience it in person. But the power, I've always believed so much in the power of sports, but seeing that the power of words is just as strong really had a big impact on me.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. And then when you merge them together, the sky's the limit, right? At the end, we all have the capacity to generate an abundant stream of creative energy. And this force is what shifts and completely redefines our entire conception of reality. And the fact that you guys have created this documentary to showcase that is absolutely phenomenal. I think, and very important in this day and age, and in times of COVID, right? When the whole world has shifted. And we now have to cultivate that space to redefine our conception of reality, to redefine our conception of what's possible and what's not. And to make a difference, to actually make a change, and find that space to contribute in the best possible way. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you guys for sharing your stories. Now I want to learn a little bit about you and your own, all of you. So starting with you, Michael, what is your own experience in this? I mean, in this pursuit of sports, or you said you're always an avid sports fan. Have you tried to dabble in poetry after that?
I haven't, although, I guess if I have an artistic side at all, it's in, making movies. And this time, watching your video, the way you made a song with people distanced and masked and all that, making a movie in this environment was a challenge I never expected to have. Would not like to have again. I can't wait to go back to not doing it. But it was a unique experience, learning that we could do things remotely. And when people watch the movie, you'll see it's about 50% of it's really nicely filmed with professional cameras and good lighting, and 50% looks like this, and we have sound breaking up, and it's sort of the reality we live in. And so I think you learn about your resilience. I would never call myself an artist, but as an artist or as a creator,
your versatility, right? That's what you learn that your art doesn't have a confined boundary towards it, that it's versatile, that it's constantly responding to the ever-changing landscape of our lives and our world. The way that this video happened, it was a member of the Air Force Band, Jeff Hardy, came over with his handheld. And what I believe is so beautiful about this video was how it managed to really capture the sentiment behind it. Everyone was so involved, so engaged in actually making this song take place. I sent it to them and I was like, okay, guys, we're recording in 2 weeks. And everything just sort of fell into place because the energy was there. And that's what he captured. He didn't capture anyone looking for reasons not to do it or how this was not going to be possible. Everybody was engaging and bringing all of their energy to just generate this product. They weren't like, okay, it's a really tight timeline and it's probably not possible. This is a whole music video. This is a show. This is a song. And you've seen how many people it takes to create a song. And everybody just sort of fell into place because there was that natural, authentic exchange of energy. And right now, more than ever, it's so important for film. And I think that although I'm sure we are all very excited to come back to the higher level of human interaction without the masks and everything. But I think it's such a beautiful opportunity to really showcase and tap into the deeper layers of what's happening, behind the scenes.
Yeah,
and I think
if there was any upside to
right?
Definitely, if there was any upside to this past year and to this experience, it's sort of, you learn about resiliency, you learn about the power of community, and that you can accomplish things when you don't think you've never envisioned having to overcome certain barriers. You've learned how important people are, and that when you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And it's been, super humanizing too. I mean, as I've worked in film and TV, and I've been on phone calls over the past few months with, the head of Netflix, and he's sitting in his garage, just like we're all sitting in these sort of makeshift offices right now. It's been really deeply humanizing. And in some ways, like, inspiring to see that, okay, that's not how you normally make, a song. This is not how we normally make a movie, but working together, just pulling together, working as a team, being resilient, being creative about how you accomplish things, you can still do great things even when there's sort of unforeseeable barriers placed in front of you.
100%. Thank you for that, Michael. Chanel, what about you? Tell me about your poetry or your athletic pursuits.
Well, my athletic pursuits are not that great, but I will say I did start when we were in person. I was, they trained me on how to coach soccer, which I never thought I would do, and I did, and I was doing it. Referee.
You have no athletic pursuits, but you coach. I mean,
yes.
Is it one of those? Are you gonna claim beginner's luck when you hit a ball and it perfectly enters the goal? You're like, oh, I never knew I could do that.
Absolutely, I am.
And yet you're like a legend.
I'm claiming it. But as far as like my artistic, I mean, I feel like everything is art. One of the players from Washington Spirit, she was just like, how even soccer is an art in itself, and she's absolutely right. Like, I'm art, you're art. You know what I mean? So, for me, like, I just had an early understanding of that, and I've always been writing. It wasn't until maybe my undergrad that I started sharing it with others, but yeah, I just started sharing my poetry and writing about just life experience, things I've gone through, things I've seen people around me go through, things that happen in the community. and I just started writing about it, sharing it, and people liked it. So, but really, it's not even. I mean, in the sense it is for people, but really, it started just for an outlet for myself, like my own therapy, in a sense, and then it just became bigger. So something that started off just about myself became like, oh no, this is not about me. This is not about you. Like it's about everyone, And I always say, like, if I have an ability to create an impact and make an impact on something bigger than myself, then that's how I know, it's meaningful, it's purposeful, it's successful. It's not about how many numbers I do on a stream, with streams on a song. It's not about, what publications I'm in, that my writing's in. And even though, that stuff is important, but and I'm proud of myself for those accomplishments, but it's bigger than that. It's so much bigger than that. So, yeah.
100%. Thank you. That was beautifully put. It's much bigger than that. Art is, a larger framework that encompasses all of the different aspects of the human experience, and we're only a tiny little fragment of it. And every engagement is magical and it's powerful. And if we all understand our role in this huge universe and understand the value and the power of our contribution, we all understand that we're all art. That was so perfectly put. Thank you.
Definitely.
Ladies, Washington spirit. So we all know that you're like all beast of athletes, but I sort of have received one or two little hints as to what some of you guys do outside of that: dancer, singer, performer. So spill the beans. Dancer. Sam, I'm talking to you. Yeah. Sam, no, and Dorian. I'm not putting anyone on the spot. But,
No, I'm not gonna dance right now. I love to dance only for fun, though. Like, nothing serious. I'm not a good dancer.
We're having a great time here. Yeah, I don't know what you're. Too early. Fair enough. After 5 o'clock. Don't be modest. Guys, I saw videos, so I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but if anyone wants to, beatbox, right? Any beatboxing talents in that whole? No, seriously, like banging. I don't know, drumming. An iPhone. No, okay, no takers there. Fine. We'll call you up after 5 o'clock. You can have a recording video, send it over. Pre-recorded video, send it over. I'm sure we'll find a way to make that one go viral. So poetry, writing, page writing, not saying anything. Again, not putting anyone on the spot.
Yeah, so I write a lot, and actually that was the first time ever saying or telling my poems to anyone, sharing them. Sorry. It's interesting, those 12-year-old or like 10 to 13-year-olds, they inspire you probably more than you inspire other people. I had the opportunity to go to a lot of these poetry slams. And the passion, like tears would be coming out of their eyes, stomping on the ground. And I was like, man, I want to be them. I want to be them one day. And so I had the inspiration to share one of my poems. But I write a lot. Write a couple of books, articles, poems. Yeah, it's another way to express myself.
Who's an author that you're inspired by that you feel has really elevated your pursuit of finding this voice?
Glennon Doyle. She's a rock star. Who else? There's a lot. Glennon Doyle. Oh, Brene Brown. All of her books is.
And you touched on vulnerability.
Yeah, they're like self-help books. But I really am like, one of my favorite authors is Virginia Woolf, and like how detailed she gets in her books. And yeah, I have a lot of authors, but yeah, Brene Brown actually is the one that inspired me to share my writings and my poems. But
You really highlighted the point that vulnerability is where strength is compounded, right? And again,
Strength, not only strength, but connecting with others. I think that's the most important, is the more vulnerable you are, the easier it is to connect with others, because we're all human. Yeah.
There you can only rise, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Bake shop?
I'm the team baker, so every birthday at least, someone will get a nice cake or cookies. Yeah, we've got some musical teammates. A couple of us can play the piano. Couple singers, but behind closed doors, very shy.
I used to be one of those, so I understand.
There you go, yeah. I don't know if you'd want us as your background singers, but maybe Dora could be a future background dancer.
I have to say, like, we've been waiting for the audition for such a long time. I was hoping it would be today, but it's fine. I understand early. We'll do it on the next.
Yeah.
Washington Spirit, the musical. I see it. I don't know about you guys.
So funny.
With poetry and lyrics written with you guys, right? America Scores. Michael Holsey, you're gonna film this.
Oh.
Okay, guys, we have a plan. It's happening.
I'm in.
Right? Okay, thank you so much for joining us. This has been absolutely great. And what a wonderful testament to the power of arts and sports, to bringing people together during this like weird, crazy pandemic fueled world that we've inherited and we're trying to do the best out of. So it's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you so much, Donna, for that, and for everyone. A big, huge thank you to Donna for moderating that exciting panel, and for Chanel and Michael and Washington Spirit team players for sharing your thoughts and being part of that illuminating and inspiring discussion. We do appreciate it. I also want to thank all of our partners, the Doha Film Institute, ConocoPhillips, America Scores, and the Washington Spirit team for your participation in this event. And thank you for joining us today to share your knowledge and exciting efforts towards fostering a creative and athletic culture, and for your ideas about how to do so as well. For our viewers, please be sure to check out America Scores' documentary, Our Words, Our Cities, when it is available on Amazon Prime later this month. And you can check their website for future updates for that at www.ourwordsourcities.com. And lastly, I just want to say a thank you to all of our viewers who joined us virtually today. Please stay tuned to the Qatar America platforms for a link to today's recording, so that way you can rewatch all the things that were shared today and all the updates. And be sure to subscribe to our newsletter on www.qataramerica.org to stay informed of any future activities and our future resources as they come. Again, thank you all to everyone who participated again today. We look forward to hosting you at a future Art of Athletics Festival at QAIC in the future, and any QAIC events in general. And we hope that you stay healthy, safe, and fit. Thank you all, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.